In the late 1940s, the US government, through the Air Force, released a press statement to the effect that they were investigating the UFOs and had found that they were like a biological animal living in our atmosphere, and they didn't seem to feel too threatened by them. And I'm going to be reading from that press release now. I'm going to briefly read from an Air Force public release from April 27th, 1949. The possible existence of some sort of strange extraterrestrial animals has been remotely considered, as many of the objects acted more like animals than anything else. However, there are few reliable reports on extraterrestrial animals. I don't know if the UFOs were ever really abducting people or not, but it does seem that there is a life form that lives in the atmosphere, and the government has known about this since at least the 1940s, and at least the military has. The Rosicrucians and the Kabbalists in the medieval period, in the 14th, 15th, 16th century, were writing about these, and they were knowledgeable about this. So the founding fathers coming into this country, starting this country, the Masons, the Rosicrucians, the people who understand and study the mystical nature of, the background of nature, the mysticism of nature, they understand what these are, and they always have. So some people within our own government have been aware that these were life forms in the atmosphere long before the military had actually, come out with these reports. So I just wanted to preface all of this by saying that, and that, what I'm going to be showing you is what appeared to be life forms of various types, and some of them appear to have consciousness, and some of them even appear to have eyes, noses, and mouths. This one's kind of weird looking, almost like a worm that's in the ocean, but the ocean of air, of space instead. What's the difference between air and water realistically, and how do we know that there aren't just life forms swimming all around us in the atmosphere that we can't see? We don't know that, and that seems to be what science is telling us, and infrared cameras can prove that. This one's from Russia. Kind of like a plain UFO shape. Another thing you'll notice is, you're not seeing any of these images look very clear, and that's one of the aspects of the UFO phenomena. You cannot get a clear image of a UFO. It's an energy form, and it's changing form all the time. So to get a clear image of a UFO is not easy. So it can I think that they're out there, and they do hold form for a particular amount of time sometimes, but you don't see that in the same way that you see them when they're created on fake films. I really like this example. Once again, all four of these images are the same object, just with the images taken just slowed down from a video and taken and frozen just seconds or milliseconds apart. And it looks like a plane right here, like you might see in the sky, like actually a plane right here. And right here, that looks like more like a UFO or a disc. Right here, that looks like a couple of rods or worms or something. It doesn't look anything like either of these. And right here, again, it just looks like a strange, colorful shape. You can see the whole band of colors that are actually in this. There's the green and oranges and yellows and pinks, and there's violets down here, and magentas here, and rose, and purple up here, and it's all, this is all the colors of the spectrum, because this is vibrating at a particular frequency, and it's made up of the molecules, the minerals of the earth, and the different substance of the earth. These objects are made up of the earth, the air, the fire, the water. They're made up of the minerals. They're made up of the planet, of the substance, and they are, they are vibrating, they're alive, and they're vibrating at different frequencies. And you can see, right here, that's not that's a completely natural phenomena, and it's not something that you're going to be able to create on a CGI, or that you're going to include intentionally on a CGI. This is what the effect that's made by these objects, by these UFOs. And here's one that a lot of the ancient alien and astronaut enthusiasts like to point to as evidence that, we were visited in the past and so forth, there really isn't any basis for that we were visited in the past by anybody, but there were definitely UFOs, and they've always been around. And so, is this what they're depicting right here, or is this the illumination and the rays down of God? Some people would probably try to say that's the sun. It doesn't look like the sun. This is the Baptism of Christ from England, a Flemish artist, Aert de Gilder, from 1710. And there's Jesus down here, and the rays coming down. This definitely, that clearly looks more like a UFO than it does anything else to me. This is the Church of the Dominican Monastery, and this was from 1523, and this appears that there's an object that's, this looks like a UFO above here. I don't know what else it could possibly be. It also implies the mushroom as well, because you've got a stem right here coming up behind it that it looks like it's coming down from, and then there's gills all around it too. So, this could also be mushroom imagery and nothing more than that, or we could be seeing dual symbolism once again. And it's the mushroom and the UFO. And I think that might be the case, especially in some of these instances. When I asked Rena Monet to do the artwork for the cover of the book for Ancient Psychedelia, this is the image that I asked her to try to represent in the UFO, or the spaceship that was going to be on the cover. I think this is a really good depiction, because you can't tell whether this is a UFO or a mushroom. And it's got what look like they could be portals right here, but these could also be part of the ridging along the cap. And you do see a little bit of that type of ridging on the inside, just a little bit. Right here it looks like there's a mushroom growing up though. And that does look a little bit like a mushroom right there. It might not be. So around the 1950s, we started to see an influx of science fiction films, and really it traces back actually some of the sci-fi to some novels and things like Amazing Stories back in the 1920s, before we really had movies and television like we do. And we had different ideas and stories coming through about aliens and life on other planets, and having to leave this planet to escape because of the destruction of our world from either invasion from somebody else, or destruction because of the climate or the atmosphere, or nuclear bombs or something. There's always something. So this was a nuclear situation as well with Godzilla. And Godzilla was really the first of the reptilian gods to be presented to the public in film. So Godzilla would kind of be like the granddaddy for all those people who, are researching reptilians and trying to learn about the reptile rulers. They probably didn't even put it together that Godzilla was their favorite movie when they were a kid. At least it was mine, and I was deep into the reptilian stuff for a long time. Godzilla right here started it all. Tracing back the influence of the Hollywood propaganda masters on the minds with mind control on the American public, I've been looking around and trying to figure out, what was the chain of events and the order of things that were presented to us. And it seems like The Amazing Spider-Man may have been one of the earlier, maybe the secondary or one of the earliest instances. Here, where Crawl the Lizard was the introduction of Lizard Man as an opponent to Spider-Man, and this was from January 1963. There's a very good book called Academic Opportunism in the Psychedelic 60s, which details some of the fraud of Carlos Castaneda and Michael Harner as well. And Michael Harner has contributed a lot to the psychedelic scene and psychedelic information, and he was an early influencer. As early as 1973, he published Hallucinogens and Shamanism, and he discusses on his ayahuasca trips encounters with the reptile gods, and the idea that we were slaves to a reptile race somehow. And those ideas are introduced into popular culture in this book starting in 1973, and I just find that kind of interesting, so I thought I would include it. And David Icke and Credo Mutwa, probably the granddaddies of the reptilian conspiracy lore. There really is no other source of information on reptilians out there other than what Credo Mutwa provides to David Icke in a 6-hour interview on video and in the book Children of the Matrix. In my book, Ancient Psychedelia, I go deep into this subject and some of the transcripts from the video of the reptilian agenda. And in the book, Children of the Matrix, David Icke uses absolutely no real sources to document anything about the reptilians. What he uses are books that are talking about the idea of the Nagas and underground reptiles and serpents in lore and places like China and India. But realistically, all he's doing is giving excerpts of stories which are really mushroom mythology stories. And so, digging through the book, there is no documentation in that book whatsoever for anybody to take a book like Children of the Matrix seriously. And in the video, it's similar. That's the only real source of information about reptilians is what Credo Mutwa has to say. And what I do in my book is I break down Credo Mutwa, the transcript of the video and the interview with David Icke, and I show how in at least 5 or 6 instances we can see direct mushroom symbolism. And in one instance, Credo is talking about being initiated as a shaman. And usually you take drugs when you're initiated as a shaman. You take herbal or medicine substances, hallucinogens, psychedelics. He's talking about eating an alien and going into the ground and describing hallucinating and laughing and bright visual colors. And he never mentions anything about psychedelics. And what we're getting symbolism being conveyed here. He also talks about the monopeds as a race of aliens known to have existed in Africa. And we've already discussed and covered the monopeds, the shadefoots. So there's a number of different instances like this that I'm able to point out, and I'm able to expose these two people for what they are. They're just myth makers, and all of this is just myth. And one thing I've heard over and over from people online, people out there that believe in reptilians still, people who are still acting like children, is that somehow the reptilians, they've been keeping hidden from us. That's the reason we don't have any pictures of them. That's why nobody's able to describe them completely. We don't have, they hide from us. They are either interdimensional, or they shapeshift, or they live in another, right next to us in a place we can't see or something. But they're hiding from us, obviously, is what we're told, and that's why we don't have any more evidence about them. But somehow, they're not able to hide from all of the comic books and all of the figurines and all the toys and all the things that are given to children and all of the programming on television and stuff. They can't stop any of that. But, somehow they stay hidden from us, and that's the how they control us. That's what we're told. I don't think they're doing a very good job. We're going to be looking at a few examples of some mushroom rocks from all around the world, and these are very interesting because I see them as representations of the goddess and God and the creatress working to terraform the earth. And I think that some of these are really not explainable. Whereas we can explain how the pyramids were built, ultimately there's a way to explain it. There really isn't any way that we can explain some of the rock formations and the mushroom rocks that we see all around the world. And it seems like the earth is alive, and these are some of the signs that she's present with us all the time, and in everything, and in everything, even the rocks. These are some mushroom rocks from Altai, Siberia, and in this case they really, they do have mushroom shape a little bit, but one of the interesting aspects is how the large tops are balancing on these, thinner stems down below. How do they get there? How do they end up like that? There's always a scientific explanation, but, can they prove it? You're probably looking at these and thinking, those look really familiar. This one's in New Mexico, and this is in Utah, and these look just like cubensis mushrooms to me. I mean, they look I don't know. They look very much like cubensis mushrooms. Everybody I show these pictures to says the same thing. They go, those look a lot like cubensis mushrooms. The earth does create some interesting rocks, some interesting mushroom rocks. And this concludes the video presentation, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've learned something from it. And if you have, please tell people about it, pass it along, the information, tell them about ancient psychedelia, ancientpsychedelia.com. The books, the videos, postcards, and all different kinds of promotional items are available there to support me. And I hope that you all would do that. Thank you very much.